time of creative storms, a great weapon was forged. Now, in an age of reawakening, like Thor with his mighty Mjolnir, those with the strength must try to wield the hammer of the photographic gods.
Hi and welcome to my channel. I think something was a little bit strange with my voice back then, but hey. So today I'm going to talk to you about my latest acquisition, which is the Mamiya RB67 Pro S, the beast from the east. The legends about this camera's weight are not exaggerated. Okay, so I had to go and get the version that's got one that's got a prism finder attached to it. But even without the prism finder, this is a heavy camera. It's also one that seems to divide opinion on YouTube. Either people think it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, or they relegate it because they think it's too heavy or too slow in operation. And I don't think that's very fair on the camera. I know my colours to the mast. I used to use one of these back in the day. I used to hire one because I couldn't afford to own one. And I'd always wanted to afford to own one, and now I can. But I hear people complaining about it not being a camera that you can walk around the streets and shoot with. Well, surprisingly, taking a Mack truck in the Le Mans 24-hour race isn't a recipe for ultimate success. And this camera is kind of the same thing. It was never designed to be a walkabout and shoot camera. If you're brave, you can do that. You do need absolutely legendary muscles to do it because it is a beast. But at what it's intended to do, it is supremely good. It was designed as a studio and location camera. Now, a location camera is a little bit different than a walkabout camera. That's one where you take the camera to your location. You probably have a team to work with if you're a professional photographer. And this is the tool that you need. The negative on the rotating back here, in the rotating back, is huge. You can see the back rotate. Make sure I don't drop the camera because I don't want to break my leg. And it's just as easy to do portrait or landscape format. As I say, it's a beast of a camera, but it needs to be used within its limitations. Let's go a bit further into it. One of the first things I had to do to my RB when I got it was to replace all the light seals in its 120 back. This is super common. These seals turn to black sludge and are totally useless, as black sludge is, at keeping out the light. And you will get multiple light leaks unless you change the light seals. Light seals are cheap, £15 for a set of two complete sets from eBay. I'll put a link in the description. But it's a fiddly job and it takes over an hour. Toothpicks, isopropyl alcohol, swearing, it all goes on. But once they're done for a few years and they'll be fine. And backs, of course, are very, very important, because you wouldn't have an RB unless you wanted the facility of changing backs, the same as a Hasselblad or a Bronica. And of course that is a fantastic facility because it does allow you to change mid-roll, to have colour and black and white on the go at the same time. Great. Let's get into some of the controls on the RB now. I'm not going to go super in depth on that, but just some basics, because there's quite a bit of internet lore that's actually wrong about the RB. Something that I hear really regularly in videos about the RB is that somehow it's really, really easy to double expose and people waste loads of film and whatever doing that. I have never found that to be the case. And I think some of the problems come from the fact that this little switch, and I'll show a close-up of that in a second on screen, allows double exposures. And it also allows the shutter to be fired when there's no film in the camera. And the camera makes a lovely sound with its shutter, and people tend to like to fire it with no film in. So this little lever gets left in the red dot mode, that's with the red dot exposed, when people go to shoot it, and there is no double exposure protection when that red dot's exposed. So basically you need to learn a little routine. So whenever you've loaded the back, make sure that the red dot is covered. I'll uncover it because I don't have any film in and I want to show you how the shutter actuates. Safety interlock with the dark slide, and that has to come out before the shutter will fire. Then the shutter has to be cocked and the mirror has to be brought down. That's been done already by this big lever here. Then you make sure that the film's wound on, then you fire. Then you cock the shutter, drop the mirror, wind on, fire. And if you stick to that, the camera will let you know when you're not doing it right, because it won't let you do something wrong. Much in the same way that it won't allow you to take the lens off when everything's not in alignment. It's to some degree foolproof, but you do need to be mindful of it, and you do need to probably read the manual, which is available online. But I thought I would just make sure that people are not drawn into this internet wisdom of these cameras being really tricky as far as double exposure. They're not like old folding cameras whereby you can, just it goes out of your head and then you just shoot the entire roll on one frame. This is nowhere near like that. This will protect you from problems like that if you make sure that this little switch is in the right position. The only caveat to that is that I believe the earliest the RB is not the RB67 is not the RB67 Pro S. I think their interlock was not as good, so I think it may be easier to take double exposures with them, but I haven't seen that many of those about now. Incidentally, this camera came from Japan. I imported it from Japan, and you'll find far more of these in good condition in Japan than you will in Britain at the moment, and probably in other parts of Europe. I do see channels touting the RB67 as a good choice for a first medium format camera, and I would really disagree with that. A good beginner's medium format camera should really encourage you to use it and give you no barriers to using it. And one of the biggest barriers with the RB is its weight and its bulk. You've got to be pretty dedicated, and it's also not super versatile in the sense that, as I said, you can't really go around and shoot street with it. You can't really shoot sport with it. You can't really shoot anything that's not portrait or editorial or that type of thing. Landscape, of course, it's a very good landscape camera. If you can get far enough out into the landscape, toting this big weight with you. That's a fine thing for me to say as also a large format photographer, but this is quite a brute. Personally, as a beginner camera, I much more heartily recommend the C330, which is a lump in itself, but it's not a massively giant boat anchor. It will give you the advantages of the bellows focusing that the RB has, which is fantastic, but at a much lower price point. I think you can pick these up for just over $250 with a lens, sometimes a little bit less, often a little bit more, but you won't get much change out of £500 for any sort of RB67 Pro S. I paid around £500 for this and the two lenses I use regularly with it. So if you're intending to expand on lenses, etc., then this is probably a better bet. But this is a video about the RB, so I will go back to that and say my own view on this is that this is a small, large format camera. What I mean by that is it's much more akin to, say, a 5x4 camera than it is to, say, a Rolleiflex or it's a camera that you have to be very deliberate with, and you have to think quite a lot about where you're going to take it, how you're going to take it. So it makes you think and it slows you down like a large format camera does. And it has a very large negative. Okay, so there's a 6x9 is a larger negative, but you can't really get a portable 6x9 camera apart from the sort of rangefinder types that mostly don't have interchangeable lenses, I think. Although you can shoot me down in flames if I'm wrong. They're great cameras, don't get me wrong, but they don't have the flexibility that an SLR does. And this is a flexible camera in many respects, certainly very flexible for close-ups. As I mentioned, it has bellows like the C330, so you can focus in very, very close without needing any other things like extension tubes or any of that. But in that respect, again, it's more like a large format camera. So I look at this like a 5.4 camera with reflex viewing. Probably like one of the old Ruby reflexes or something like that back in the day, back in the early in the last century. So it's, I think in that sense it's a breed all of its own. It's not like many medium format cameras, and so really not particularly suited to beginners, although If you are a beginner and you have patience and you're prepared to learn and read, then yeah, great. One of these will last you a lifetime. They are supremely tough. In fact, they'll break you more than you'll break it, although sometimes they can have little things that go around, like the bellows can actually develop pinholes, and I'm very glad to see that there are replacement bellows available online now for them. Not that it's an easy job to fit them. It's a very difficult job indeed, but at least you can get the spares. And these of course have no electronic components in them at all, so you're not going to get problems with electronics breaking down or not being able to get batteries or whatever. This is just plain manual. So there you have it, my thoughts on the RB. It'll be featuring quite heavily, I think, in this channel. And I can't wait to actually take it out and shoot some photographs. I wish I could have for this episode, but the weather has just been so abysmal. It's May and it's just nasty. But hopefully I'll be able to get out really soon and shoot some. And I've got a lot more things coming up. Like my new restoration project on a 5x7 camera, which I'm going to be featuring on the channel. Well, if you like what you've seen in this episode, please hit that like button. And if you want to kind of hook up to this channel and see more of the good stuff that I've got going on over the next few months, when we should be able to get out and hopefully take more photographs, then think about subscribing. Anyway, nice to have seen you. You take care of yourselves and see you again soon. Bye.